Ladies and gentlemen, this is Coda Jacobs, the crusader and visionary behind a brighter future in wrestling. If you're an honorable and noble public servant like myself, you are listening to the Game Changer Podcast.
Hello, I'm NateFNGreat, and welcome to the Game Changer Podcast, and this is a Pro Talk Wrestling edition of the show. Guys, let's talk about women's wrestling, shall we? It's definitely something that became an attraction for quite a while, and they went through quite a bit of different circumstances. I mean, you look at all the great attraction matches that we had. The bra and panties match, paddle on a pole match, lingerie pillow fight, fulfill your fantasy battle royal, swimsuit competitions, bikini fights, cat fights, and literally every single sexually deviated food known to man in a pool match. You get it. It wasn't really until we got the hashtag Give Divas a Chance that we started seeing some kind of resurgence. Honestly, no, I'm going to take that back. It wasn't until TNA really started putting focus on the women's wrestling. It wasn't until they, as well as Gail Kim, who I heavily will, really point out with this, who was definitely a cornerstone of that division, really started to create something absolutely amazing. And they had women from all over the world competing for the Knockouts Championship, where it felt like an actual championship, where, again, in certain other companies, they decided to focus more on the entertainment part of it. And it wasn't until, Give Divas a Chance that we started seeing a bit of change. People like Emma, Paige, Bayley, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, women like that who were really out there to create something that really hadn't been done in the history of WWE. Now, I'm not going to discredit women who have definitely tried to create that, like Molly Holly, Victoria, people like that who were definitely workhorses in there that just literally were there to, bring out the wrestling side of it, but also they were basically subjected to a lot of the scrutiny as well as the sexist comments by one person in particular, but I'm not going to really mention the names, although let's just say that they had a fascination for puppies. Woohoo! Yeah, no, just... And since then, you would think that they would just continue to skyrocket up and just continue there, but the women's division just kind of is on a bit of a wavelength in the world of wrestling entertainment. Now, in Yellow brand, they continue to find ways to really build that up and make the women something that is to be appreciated and really just absolutely on the same level as the men, whereas on certain other brands, they're kind of treated and put off to the side. And there's been people who have said that women's wrestling do not create money. Well, to that person, I say, you try to sell out a stadium and main event, a WrestleMania, and you tell me how easy it is. So there's been a lot of talk for women to get their own brand. And while I'm not fully for that, and I'll give you two words as to why, 205 Live, I will admit that having the women have their own kind of, space and own place to create some leg room, but also create some impact, definitely would be something that would honestly be welcomed with a lot of people. I mean, look at Evolution. That was something that had never been done before, and I hate to say the fact that right now it doesn't seem like it'll ever be done again, which is sad, because you look at the women who came to that event, you look at the matches that were on that card, and you think about the impact that they made on that show, and you know that the women definitely do have a right to be playing with the big boys. And honestly, they can kick the big boys' asses. Let's be fair. So this is going to be something in which I'm going to not necessarily do a fantasy booking, but it's kind of like a layout of what I would do if given the opportunity to create a women's brand. If given the chance to, have the women get their own show, much like a 205 Live, how it would kind of, create this deal. Okay, it is a fantasy booking, let's face it. So it will start from the night after WrestleMania of this year, going all the way to WrestleMania of next year. In the words of one famous Brit with white hair, or I think he has white hair, I don't know if he's still bald yet or not, let me have a go. So right now, the main thing is to really establish who's going to be on this roster, as well as establish what the takeaway is for this. And obviously, it's to give the women their own showcase, give the women their own chance to shine. Because in all honesty, you look at kind of where they're placing the women right now, and it's just not exactly where it should be. It definitely should be a lot better than what it should be in the long run. So, to be honest, instead of doing that deal where they just decided, hey, let's arbitrarily cut the women's roster in half, we're going to be combining the rosters together, and here are the layouts in which definitely want to have the championships be. So, for the main women's championship, rechristened the Women's World Championship, it'll be held by Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley. Now, I know that seems a little bit harsh, but at the same time, it's one of those things where right now that championship has gone through a huge line of just everything that it's been through, whether it's been the classic Oval Women's Championship or the Divas Championship, which still makes my skin crawl. Then going into the current women's championship that it has right now, honestly, guys, I would definitely find a way to nix the Raw Women's Championship and create that championship into something very prestigious, something along the lines of what they kind of did with the Intercontinental Championship. Now, I'm not saying a copy and paste deal, but definitely have a really cool design so it definitely looks like a championship that women would want to have. Now, it was cool that they had basically the Women's Championship look like the WWE Championship and kind of combined the Intercontinental title in there first, but then when they just decided to do copy and paste with it, that's when it started to lose its value. So definitely rechristen that Raw Women's Championship to the Women's World Championship. And like I said, Rhea Ripley is going to be the one holding on to that. Now, the SmackDown Women's Championship is going to get the same deal, and it's going to be treated as the secondary championship held by Bianca Belair. Now, I know some people are going to be mad at me because of the fact that Bianca just main evented WrestleMania, so this feels like a downgrade to her. In all honesty, here's what's going on with this, is that Bianca is one of those women that I'm going to be heavily promoting in this new rebrand of the women's division, because you have to remember that NXT's women's division was built on basically 4 women, which was Bayley, Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky. Well, Bianca is going to be definitely one of those added, one of those added cornerstones in there. May also be taking the time to switch it out, change it to somebody else. That's just my opinion. So I'll get into more as to where I feel that way in just a bit. Now, I try to think of like a cool, kooky kind of name that would work for that. I mean, the Women Continental, the Women States, I went for a classic one. I went for the Women's Television Championship. I honestly think, done right, that design would look absolutely amazing. And it will. Now we go on to the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, I know there's some people that are not fans of that. On the other hand, I think it's actually a really good idea because for a lot of the women that are not being utilized properly, which sadly are quite a few, they can definitely be paired up with somebody else, whether it's a new up-and-coming star or somebody who's been there for a while, and create something great. I mean, you look at some of the best tag teams, they were just random people paired together because either A, it seemed like it would work, and B, they had natural charisma for each other. Guys like the Hollywood Blondes, Public Enemy, the Dudley Boys, so many other great tag teams that have, really just been paired off together just because it worked out very nicely. Or you could just have that one person that's super charismatic and can work with anybody, i.e. a female version of Sting. Just saying. And of course that would be held by the champions of Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Trust me, they're not going to be that way for long because I know one of them is absolutely the biggest star and the other one is somebody who hurts her bum. Should give it away. Now, for the NXT side, I decided just to keep it the way it was, where it will still be Raquel Gonzalez as the NXT Women's Champion. And at the time that I created this, Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon were still the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions on that brand. So, I know that there are new Tag Team Champions right now, but I'm just kind of going off of what I had before. So, this is kind of me procrastinating, but at the same time, it's my booking, leave it how I want it to be. So, I had to develop 12 months of content for this. Now, instead of just going through a huge detailed thing about this, I really just thought, you know what, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the notes as well as some of the highlights of the women's roster and how I kind of build that brand up there. So, month one, we kind of build up the roster. We kind of introduce everybody. Honestly, I kind of went through a little bit of like the classic NXT deal where some of them you could actually give them like hype packages because you can't fit everybody onto the same show. You can just have them kind of, talking about themselves, what they're hoping to accomplish, everything like that. Now, for the majority of these pay-per-views, except for one in particular, which I will get to, they're going to have 2 matches on the pay-per-views. The 2 matches that will take place at WrestleMania Backlash will be the triple threat match between Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley, Asuka, and Charlotte. And for the second one, it will be a tag team title unification matchup between NXT Tag Team Champions Shotzi Blackheart and Rhea and Ember Moon taking on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. The team winning, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Because in all honesty, I really do like their tag team, titles design more than the ones that they have in NXT. I'm sorry, but it just looks like a weird knockoff of the NXT tag team titles that they have there. And in the women's match, we have Charlotte and Asuka falling to Rhea Ripley. Because Rhea just got the championship, let's have her have a pretty good run, but also have a feud, but also just have a really good feud going into the... I stand corrected. I had Shotzi and Ember Moon winning this one. I sure really wrote that in my notes. So, yeah, Shayna and Nia lose the tag team titles to Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. Wow, I'm on my A game today, I can tell. So, going into month 2, we have Rhea Ripley, Shotzi and Ember, as well as Bianca Belair, who defends the TV championship against all comers. This is her opportunity to literally have the best matches with anybody on the roster. She literally is basically invoking the open challenge deal. And to be honest, it's kind of what the television championship was there for anyway. It was just having them come out, defending it every single week, and really creating some high-quality matches, which I believe Bianca has the way to do. So, we also have a feud in which Rhea goes one-on-one with Bayley, because I think that those two would really have a great matchup, which they would headline the pay-per-view, in which Rhea Ripley would retain. We get a first time ever in a matchup between Asuka and Charlotte, where they have an Iron Woman matchup where Charlotte is victorious. But this is one of those things where I want to see the two of them go out there for 30 minutes and literally just steal the show. This will happen actually before the pay-per-view. And on that same show, we see Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart defending the titles against the Riot Squad in succession. Also at the pay-per-view, we have the other matchup on here. We're actually going to give it three women's matches on the show, in which we have Bianca versus Sasha. Bianca picks up the victory over Sasha in the rematch. And then we have the Money in the Bank match, which is won by one Tegan Nox. Because she's Lady Kane, she deserves to be heavily promoted. It's just one of those things where she is one of my favorites. Let me have this. So, because of her win on the episode of the women, well, actually, I've never even thought of a name for the women's, for the women's show. It could be WWE. No, that's neither here nor there. Because of Charlotte's victory over Asuka, she is the next in line to take on Rhea Ripley at the next pay-per-view. It could be the next Great Balls of Fire match again, because why not? Just why not? We have a triple threat match building between three teams in this division, which we have Ember Moon and Shotzi defending against Natalya and Tamina, and Fire and Desire. Definitely building that up. And during the weeks building up to the show, seems like Bianca is definitely going to be one of those women who wants to challenge for the Women's World Championship going into the next big show. But she gets dethroned by Carmella 2 weeks before the show actually takes place. So Carmella steals the victory. She does a roll-up with the tights and the feet on the ropes. She steals that, just to be booed, glorious boos. In one of the promo packages, we actually get a good promo package for one Mia Yim. We build up Mia Yim's big debut on pay-per-view versus Bayley, because Bayley believes that she is still one of the cornerstones of the WWE women's roster. She believes that she can beat anyone. Well, Mia Yim wants to set her up to that. Mia Yim picks up the victory. We actually have a nice build up to a Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley rematch at SummerSlam, because honestly, I'd love to see that WrestleMania rematch just happening on a big stage in front of a crowd. It would really be absolutely amazing, and you know it would. And we have underneath that, we have Alexa Bliss. She's making her debut on the women's roster with her dark gimmick, because honest to God, that's great. We have kind of like a feud that's going on the show with her and Nikki Cross, because I really don't think it got the proper blow off that it did. So it really makes more sense to just have that. We have Bayley and Sasha reuniting as the Boston Hug Connection, winning the tag team titles for a third time, because that would just be absolutely amazing. And we have at SummerSlam, one of the biggest parties of the summer, a huge match between Bianca Belair versus Carmella in an ultimate makeover match. Now, unlike some of the previous makeover matches they probably had, it's just weird. we actually make a little bit more interesting, in which the loser has to wear a certain brand of makeup that was made by the winner for 1 year. So basically, Bianca makes Carmella look just absolutely atrocious, like she's a female Pennywise, or just looks like she's a hot mess, if you will. So we have right now, after SummerSlam, we have Charlotte as the Women's World Championship, major booze. Bianca as the television champion. Sasha and Bayley as the tag team champions. And we still have Tegan Nox as Money in the Bank. It's kind of important to hold on to that. So going into the next big show, we have Charlotte versus Mia Yim headlining, where Charlotte reigns victorious, because we definitely need to build up Charlotte quite a bit to the next big show. Trust me, guys, you definitely do not want to miss out on that. We have Bianca feuding with Shotzi and Ember Moon, and it all boils down to a triple threat match at the next big show, which I believe would be like Night of Champions, something like that. So they have the triple threat match. Bianca picks up the win there. And during this whole month, another underlying story is Carmella dealing with this whole makeup deal. She could even have a deal where Alexa Bliss is just like, girl, I'm not even touching that. Just having that. I think that'd be kind of funny. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that the women's tag team titles can float on all brands. So they can defend it on this women's brand as well as on the NXT brand, because honestly, that's something that should have been done in the first place, and there's so much more potential that they could do with that. Have them feud with some of the younger people. Have them feud with people that need to have that, that need to have that spotlight, that definitely deserve it. Have them feud with, Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. Have them feud with The Way. Have them feud with a lot of other women that are just coming up from, developmental, that are looking to have that spot. And honestly, slowly build up to a matchup between Boston Hug Connection and the MMA fighters, Jesse Manduke and Marina Shafir, after they've had a bit more training. That's just me. Now, go into month 6 here, and we have the announcement that Evolution 2 is coming. Because in all honesty, guys, Evolution 1 was great. Why not bring it around again? We have a huge card set for this. This is one that I'll definitely go into a little bit more details about. And the card for it looks a bit like this, in which we have the team of... We have a Battle Royal for a shot at the Women's Championship at Survivor Series, which is won by Alexa Bliss. We have a 4-team ladder match for the tag team titles, in which the Boston Hug Connection defend against Tamina and Natalya, against Jessie Manduke and Marina Shafir, as well as the team of Asuka and Io Shirai, who have been teaming up and learning their way up in the ranks for the last month, at least. In this matchup, though, we have the winners be Tamina and Natalya, because in all honesty, those two are workhorses in their own rights. They definitely do deserve to have the proper recognition for it. Natalya and her family has given so much. Tamina has given so much, and definitely will give the family name a lot more of a positive spin. We have a great, Mae Young Classic Finals. Honestly, guys, I kind of ran out of people that I could really talk about, so in all honesty, I'm just throwing this out there. Evil Sierra and Stacey Shadows in the finals, in which Stacey Shadows wins. It's my booking. It's how I want to do it. So, whatever. We have the NXT UK Women's Championship defended on here, as we see Kaylee Ray defending against Tegan Nox, where Tegan Nox picked up the victory, because in all honesty, she definitely deserved a run on NXT UK as the champion. Now, bear in mind, this is not a cash-in. Tegan Nox earned that opportunity, and she challenged Kaylee Ray on the NXT, on that brand, where she literally where Kaylee Ray says, I'll come down and I'll whoop your ass, basically. We have the NXT Women's Championship, in which we have Raquel Gonzalez taking on Rhea Ripley. Because of the history between the two of them, I think that would be a really nice matchup between the two of them. We have Raquel pick up the victory there. A nice exhibition matchup here between Molly Holly and Candice LeRae, in which Candice LeRae picks up the victory. I would also love for this to be Molly Holly's last matchup, but I feel like she's got a little bit more time to, more years to put into the business, so I'm just going to leave it as that, because we really do need to have a matchup on there that definitely brings in that nostalgia and kind of brings on, again, the passing of the torch between, a woman, between somebody who paved the way for the women's division and somebody who's going to pave the way for the women's division. And honestly, Candice LeRae is one of those women. And we have a bit of a shock, because on this show, we have the man, Becky Lynch, making her return to the roster, in which she says, I'm ready to go and I'm ready to take back what's mine. Because yes. In the semi-main event, we have a huge matchup in which it is an I Quit match between Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. These two women just go absolutely balls to the walls, just straight up bash each other, straight up just destroy each other in this matchup. But in the end, Shayna Baszler is able to force Nia Jax to say, I quit. Otherwise, she would have snapped Nia Jax's ankle. And in the main event, it's a winner-take-all matchup. The television champion versus the world champion. One generation versus another. Charlotte Flair versus Bianca Belair. And in this matchup, Bianca Belair, through grit and determination, she wins. And she becomes the Women's World Champion. Oh, that just has a nice ring to it. Give her that big moment. Just give it to her. Just give it to her, damn it. So we have a interesting matchup here, in which we have the women of the in which we have the women's Survivor Series matchup be a match where it's between the women of the main roster taking on the women of the NXT roster. And in this matchup, winning team is rewarded with title shots down the line. The losing team will get the first 5 spots in the Royal Rumble matchup. In all honesty, not exactly one of the easiest things to do. So, during all this time, Bianca Belair, she vacates the television championship, and she focuses on her run as the Women's World Champion, taking on Alexa Bliss at Survivor Series. And Alexa Bliss is just doing everything where she's basically playing mind games with Bianca. Maybe tell her that, she was only good for her hair, or she was only good for her looks, only good for her attitude. She's one of those women, where she's definitely preying on the criticisms that she was getting early on in her career, that she was never going to make it. And it's because of those mind games that we see Alexa Bliss winning the Women's World Championship. And to be honest, just seeing her on the playground with Lily and just the Women's Championship on that swing, that's just too good of a sight. That is just too good of a sight to see. We go into the next match, and hey guys, let's go into a grand match, grand deal, because it's tables, ladders, and chairs, everybody. So we have a tournament for the television championship, in which we see Mia Yim versus Ember Moon battle in the finals, and it is a tables match between the two of them, with Mia Yim going over. It's going to happen on the Go Home show before TLC, because you definitely still want to have a great show going into the event. Alexa grants Bianca a rematch with Bianca, but she makes it a playground rules match, in which it serves under Alexa Bliss's, deal. So she picks up the victory. She picks up the victory there at TLC. In the women's tag team division, we have Tamina and Natalya defending the title against everyone and anyone, but they also go a step further. They basically say that we're indeed the cornerstones of this women's division, and they cripple a couple people. They wreck the arm of Candice LeRae. They beat down, Raquel Gonzalez. They definitely show the fact that they are here to fight. Now, the other big matchup in here is that we get a match between Shotzi Blackheart and Shayna Baszler, which ends in a number one contenders match where Shayna Baszler picks up the victory. It's going to be Shayna Baszler versus Alexa Bliss at the Royal Rumble. And speaking of the Royal Rumble, that's the next thing we're talking about, month 9. So let's kind of recap again what we have for championships as well as the title holders. We have the Women's World Championship held by Alexa Bliss, the TV Championship held by Mia Yim, the tag team titles which are held by Natalya and Tamina. And in this Royal Rumble season, we get the qualifiers because why not? Let's get some people in here. So it's going to be 15 women from the main roster deal and 15 women from the NXT women's roster because I think that'd be really, really cool to see. That's just me. That's just me in a nutshell. Alexa Bliss and Shayna are the two, headliner main eventers that are going into the Rumble. It's a very physical matchup between the two with Shayna Baszler coming so close, but gets black misted into the eyes, and Alexa Bliss picks up the victory at the Royal Rumble because, in all honesty, we need to generate that heel heat. Ooh, we definitely do, and Alexa Bliss doing that definitely built that up really nicely. We have a returning Charlotte Flair coming back in the Royal Rumble matchup, and one of the feuds coming out of it is that it's going to be her versus Sasha Banks. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that they've seen this matchup so many times. Well, they put on damn good matches. What can I say? But also in this matchup, in the Rumble match, we have the man becoming a 2-time winner. That's right. Becky Lynch wins the Royal Rumble matchup. And seemingly, it's going to be Alexa Bliss versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Now, this is where it's going to be a bit more interesting because I originally had slated an Elimination Chamber matchup in which we had Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Charlotte, Sasha, Shayna, and Bianca with Alexa Bliss going over. But I'm changing that a little bit because I'm actually going to have Bianca regain the championship at this point. And honestly, guys, I really am doing that because of the fact that I really want it to be a match between Bianca and Becky at WrestleMania. I think that just having those two women who main evented WrestleMania, Becky main evented 35, Bianca main evented 37. It feels right. It feels like the best way to go about this. In the tag team division, we have Asuka and Io coming so close, but unfortunately, Tamina and Natalya slip out of the match with the titles, and Mia is challenged by Sonya Deville for the television championship, but Mia retains. We have the final event before the big show, and we have the contract signing between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch. During this deal, though, not quite official until after Bianca Belair successfully defends the championship against Alexa Bliss, who outsmarts Alexa Bliss in the matchup. So, matchup happens. They do get the contract signing. It's one of those things that I just think would just be absolutely great. Then we have, in the undercard, we also have Mia Yim defeating Mandy Rose for the television championship. But also in this matchup, this is where the Way comes in, and Candice LeRae wants to battle Mia Yim at WrestleMania. Mia Yim accepts. So then we go on to WrestleMania season. And guys, I definitely had an absolutely great set matches for this. Now, during this feud, Sasha and Charlotte move on from their feud, Sasha Banks getting the big victory over Charlotte, because in all honesty, Charlotte losing is not going to hurt her at all. She's really helping developing, a lot more of the women. But during this, we also see Shayna Baszler coming in and beating down on Charlotte, basically saying, "You're not the same Charlotte Flair that we know before. You're weak. You're pathetic." And she challenges Charlotte to a submission match at WrestleMania. In all honesty, guys, it's something I really like. So for the women's division, they're actually getting 4 matches on the WrestleMania card, in which we have the rematch between Asuka and Io Shirai taking on Natalya and Tamina for the tag team titles, in which Io and Asuka pick up the victory and pick up the win, winning the tag team titles on the grandest stage. Shayna Baszler defeats Charlotte Flair convincingly at WrestleMania, and it's kind of one of those things where Charlotte needs to really find her way again, and she needs to just find that path to get her back to being the queen, which, to be honest, makes it sound like I'm pairing Charlotte up with the way Candice LeRae's deal, which, in all honesty, I'm kind of for that now. Mia Yim successfully defends the television championship against Candice LeRae in a classic matchup. They're going to feud for a little while, but also Charlotte Flair is going to help Candice LeRae pick up the television championship on a future episode. And in the main event, we have Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair for the Women's World Championship. In honesty, guys, it's a knockdown, drag-out fight between the two of them. They lay it all on the line. In the end, Becky Lynch is able to pick up the win after using the Disarm Her on Bianca. She wins the Women's World Championship. She wins the title that she never lost in the first place. And it's one of those feel-good moments. There's, fireworks and just confetti and everything's going crazy until she's blindsided by a masked individual. Beats down, chair, beats him down. Scary tries to get involved, but to no avail. The masked vigilante reveals themselves as Tegan Nox, fresh off of her loss for the NXT UK Women's Championship. She goes into the ring, grabs the contract, gives it to the referee, and says, "Ring the bell." Referee has no choice. She's cashing in the Money in the Bank. Tegan Nox picks up the victory and wins the Women's World Championship from Becky Lynch. And everybody at WrestleMania is stunned, but also boo, boo, glorious boos. Tegan Nox is the next big heel going into the new season, in all honesty, of the women's division. Becky, she's already got people like Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair going after her. The women's television title can change hand on a dime, but with the right amount of storytelling, you have a great deal there. Charlotte Flair is going to be rebuilding herself. Bayley and Sasha kind of go through like this new kind of resurgence where they're trying to figure out who they are and where they fit into the women's division. Maybe it's a situation where they're slowly realizing that they need to be, more of the manager side of things and develop the next, generation, which could be Tegan Nox, which could be Raquel Gonzalez, which could be so many other women on there. I mean, hell, you could even have, Bayley and Ember Moon be a pairing. Shotzi Blackheart and Sasha Banks. Man, there's so much great possibilities with that. But that's how I would book the first year of the women's roster. Oh, boy. I'm exhausted. This was definitely not one of the easiest things to create. I can tell you guys that right now. But in the end, it definitely was worth it. I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed it. Did you agree with some of the things that I had to say? Let me know in the comment section. Let me know if there's anything that you would do differently if there was a women's brand. And I guess with this one, I'll end with the question of who do you think is the greatest women's wrestler of all time? And I'm not just talking WWE. I'm talking about from any promotion, any company in all of history. Who do you think is the greatest women's wrestler of all time. So, love to hear your guys' comments. Definitely follow me on Twitter at RealFNGame, as well as on the Instagram. You can also check me out on so many different podcasting platforms like iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Breezer, just to name a few. So, guys, thank you so much for listening in. Be sure to tune into another edition of the Game Changer podcast. This has been an absolutely crazy deal. So, reminding you guys, be safe, be smart, be respectful, and remember that you can make a difference one day at a time by simply being a game changer. Thank you guys so much. Catch you on the flip side. Toodaloo.